Kathleen, dear Kathleen, you think you can write books? Okay, yeah. No, you don't write books. I write books. Nobody else in the world writes books. Just me. Just me. I'm the writer here. Okay, you think you can write a book and get away with it? We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Okay. I'll review it. I'll review it. You can't get anything past me, Kathleen. I'm going to review this book, and it's going to be reviewed through the harshest of fires, my fire. Okay. Yeah, let's review this. We're going to review Arboriah Lux. Welcome, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am doing something very special today. I am doing my first book review on the channel. I am super excited about this. I will be reviewing a book called Arboriah Lux by Kathleen Lyons, whom I happen to know, who has now become my rival in writing books. I'm not joking. Not joking, Kathleen. You can't just write books and not expect me to retaliate in the harshest of ways. I've read your book. Matter of fact, I've read your book dose times. Okay, I've read it twice. I actually read it in the beta version when it was on Wattpad, and I have recently, just in the last couple of days, reread it through its official version available on Amazon. If I dare give you any shoutouts, any credibility at all. I will have all of her links down below so that you might review and see for yourself what you think of Arboriah Lux. All right, so the actual book review of Arboriah Lux. All right, so in all honesty, look, first and foremost, above all else, if you write a book and you publish that book, props to you. All right. I personally know how incredibly difficult it is to write a book and to put it out there. It's not just a lot of work that you've done. I mean, look, most people talk about writing a book and they have ideas. And the truth is, ideas are very cheap. Okay. Ideas aren't worth a whole lot. Everybody has ideas, but not everybody writes a book. Okay. Sure, you wrote a chapter. Sure, you wrote two chapters. That's not a book. Okay. To write a book is to put a lot of heart and a lot of soul. And to publish a book is something else entirely. Okay, you're putting all of that heart and soul out into the world for people like me to absolutely burn, okay, into nothingness, which is not what I'm going to do today. Okay, I've got some good things that I want to talk about and some things that I would really like to see improved upon in future stories. And honestly, all of my critiques, which I'll get into in a moment, are really just asking for more. And I think that whenever the audience just wants more, that might be a critique. It might be something you want to work on. But honestly, it's just people want more of this story that you have. Again, the book review that I will be doing today is of Arboriah Lux. And I've got the Kindle page here pulled up because I want to read the description here in case you guys are interested. So it says here, in a field of dead flowers and tall grass, Lux awakens to a sky of cool gray and a white sun. As she journeys to the city of Obsidia Terma, she's met with danger as well as friendship in those who save her life. As she's plagued by visions of another Asterblood, the twin sister of a Dhampir named Isilis, the one who saved her life, she's called to solve the mysteries surrounding her. Her sudden appearance, the death of Isilis' sister, and the imbalance that has caused poverty and discourse in the city of Obsidia Terma. Lux must learn vital lessons in order to survive. Keep your nature hidden, protect those who need it, and trust very few. So, a good, succinct description. I will show the book cover here. I think this is a very good book cover. I think it really, having read the book, I think it is a good portrayal of the symbolism within. And I want to start off first by talking about a lot of the good things. If you're into vampires and Victorian era, society, classism, if you're into different races, vampires and demons and, weird hound dogs, look, you go for it. This is your book. Okay. I would probably put this, I know it's kind of marketed as a paranormal dark fantasy. But in all honesty, I think this fits into. I actually discovered this category the other day, kind of like romantasy, where it's kind of like half romance and half fantasy. And I actually quite like, stories with a fantasy backdrop. that sometimes focus on more simple, like a romance. Not that a romance is simple necessarily, but that it's not, like a 10-book epic. You know what I'm saying? Very different. So I actually feel this fits in a romantasy category. So you have a fantasy backdrop with some fantastical, romance and things like that taking place within it. So to me, that's really cool. I like that idea. It's not just a romance; it's also a murder mystery, and that's really cool. And you know what? I think what happens a lot of times is people try and write books that they don't they do one of two things. They are not able to do both. And I do think that Arborea Lux. One of the good things about it is I think it does play into very nicely. There's something about it. The way that Kathleen, you were able to put everything together was really good because it starts kind of more romantic and it has some mystery to it there, and it goes into full on murder mystery, but it doesn't seem to detract away from the romance of it all. So that part worked out. I think you did a very good balancing act of those two different things. One of the things that I really did like, genuinely and truly, is Lux as a character. In a world where we have a lot of George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones, morally gray people, morally gray characters, anti heroes, right? You don't seem to see a lot of characters who are genuinely meant to be pure and innocent. And reading Lux and how she's navigating this class based world from a very pure hearted perspective is very intriguing to me. And it got me thinking a lot about what I could do with a character like that. And so anytime that, I think of an idea and I'm like, that's a really good idea. Like, how would I portray that idea? I think that's not only a good idea, but it's a good idea that has hooked me. And so props to you there. I think that Lux is a really good main character, and I think that that is really, really cool. The other thing that I genuinely thought was really, really well is the antagonist, the villain. Okay, so I've actually read this book twice, dos times, and once was in the beta version on Wattpad, and the other version is the ebook version available on Amazon. So that's the one that I read, and it was fun both times, and it was really cool to see what little changes might have taken place between the beta version and the main version. But in both of them, and especially the second time, I was able to see all of the clues that I had missed before. So the first time that I read Arborea Lux, when the villain was revealed, I genuinely was like, "Oh man, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect it to be that person." And again, when you live in a world where mystery thrillers are par for the course and everybody's got one, to not to kind of play that line and to play it so well in a book that is not meant to exclusively be a mystery, and focus all of its time on that, I thought was really well done. I genuinely did not see that twist at the end. I didn't see that coming, in terms of who the identity of the antagonist. And so reading through it a second time, I can see where you've improved upon some of those clues and hints. And I think that all of the clues, I think all of the tools that you need to solve this mystery are there. And so I think that's really great. Matter of fact, I think most of the characters in the book are really well done. I really love the Passor family as a whole. I think you did a very good job kind of balancing. You have Eldrick Passor, who's kind of the main one of the main characters, and he's kind of like the older brother of the Passor family. He's kind of at the forefront, and then you have Dahlia kind of in second place as the mother figure, and then Dargren. I thought Dargren Passor was another really great character, kind of the father figure, and really, just this whole family adopts Lux, and takes care of her. And they're not just a great cast of characters, but they also allow a certain leverage in this world, right? So they're kind of at a midway point. They take care of noble people, but they also take care of some lesser people in the lower classes, and they're a good family. So for someone like Lux, who is so pure and innocent in a lot of ways, for her to end up with this family and kind of spend some time with them, I think was a really good idea, and I think it was a really good way for her to get a viewing of the world, in terms of who she's going to be and how she should operate. And you see the effects of the Pastor family and their reputation all throughout. So I thought they were a really good cast of characters. And I think Lux and the villain were really great characters as well, and that kind of thing. So those are really the main selling points to me of this story, is that you've got some great characters. You've also got one of the ideas that I really liked in the story. So it is a vampire, type of story. I don't want to say it's fully vampire, kind of in the way that Twilight is a vampire story, but it does feature vampires prominently as a race of characters or people, in this narrative that have a certain societal status. And what I thought was interesting was the nature of the vampirism, if you will. So it's more of, I don't want to say a disease, but it is a mutation esque thing that is contracted by being turned by another vampire. And so if you are a first generation vampire, you are the first version of vampire for that bloodline. And at least from what I gathered in the story, if you're a first generation vampire, you have the full force of that mutation kind of within your system. And so it's going to be much harder to control your bloodlust. It's going to be much harder for you to control yourself as a hungry, angry vampire guy. You know what I'm saying? And so then when, as the generations go down, it's almost like people evolve, or they become accustomed or adapt, as the genealogy goes down, and they become more controllable. Their symptoms of mutation. They're still vampires. They still have all the vampire powers or whatever, but it's just not as effective on them. The mutation itself, it seems. And so as you become, more upstanding and more controlled, as a generational vampire, it seems the higher status that you have in this world. So the mutative vampire aspects, as well as the generational aspect, of the vampires, I also thought was a really cool idea, and something that I think fits very well in a Victorian era society. And it kind of is a change in pace for classism, if you will. Obviously, if you have a lot of money in this world, you're still at a higher class. But typically, when you kind of read stories that focus on classism as a feature of the narrative, it's always money, and there's really nothing else to it. It's your money, and maybe sometimes your family. But this kind of takes that and runs it a little bit deeper, and changes things up a little bit in a way that I thought was really really cool. Now, I also, those are the good things about the book. If you're interested in any of those, I would highly recommend going and checking out Kathleen's book. Now, there are a couple of critiques that I have, okay, from writer to writer. This is something that I genuinely I just want to encourage you on, okay? This is not a negative thing. This is not a negative review in any capacity, all right? But one of the things that I noticed, and this is having read it twice, I noticed that the world building for me, um, could have been more, if that makes sense. So there were a lot of things throughout the story in terms of how the magic works. There's a system of balance and imbalance within this world, particularly for Asterbloods and their appearance. And there's a lot of things like that kind of fall under this umbrella of world building. So kind of first and foremost, in terms of what each of these races, and what they're able to do, and how their hierarchy works and everything, it is kind of in there, but just enough so that it's kind of a hint, and not so much a really good grand explanation of how everything works, right? Again, even reading through it twice, I felt like both times I was just a little bit confused. Okay, so where exactly do the demons stand? Because I know that they're, like there's one like king demon, or was, and that's kind of where like the main royal family comes from. And I know that the vampires have their whole system, which is actually explained a little bit more in depth. Um, but I just, when the villain, for example, starts to, show some kind of powers, and Lux herself, shows some kind of, powers or whatever, kind of, a little bit more than just her innocence and purity towards others. I was just kind of left a little bit wondering, like, hey, so how does all of this work? Okay, how do these people, where does all of this come from? It just wasn't something I was ever like really, really clear on. Another thing that I kind of mentioned just a moment ago was the imbalance, right? We know that a lot of things happened in the past that kind of caused a decrease in aster bloods as a whole. But now there being so few. Lux is one of the only aster bloods kind of that we know of. There's just a whole balance system there that kind of based on some things we learn about the past versus some things we learn about the present. Didn't feel super consistent to me. And the idea of balance was kind of brought up. Like, hey, don't you know about the balance system? And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't know about the balance system. And the book was like, yeah, but the balance system, it's there, right? And I'm like, I guess so. I guess it's there. Those are just two things kind of within the world building that I just wasn't totally 100% there on. Another thing, kind of in terms of the immersiveness of the city itself, I feel like there were a couple of things too. There were the first time that I read it, I genuinely thought that it was in like a more medieval, fantasy setting, and less so a Victorian era setting. I think you drop a couple of hints, specifically in terms of like the class society which did exist in medieval times, but in a less prominent way, I think, than kind of what you described in the book for a more Victorian era type thing. Um, but I think that in terms of the classism and the society and the Victorian era as a whole, it did feel a little bit shallow. So one of the things that I noticed in the book is that you're trying to portray this class divide. Okay, you have people that are poor, and you have people that are rich, and you have people that are first generation vampires, and you have people that are 10th generation vampires, and there appears to be this very big divide. However, one of the things that you notice is that among all of the people who are nobles, okay, among all of the people who are rich and prominent and fancy, in all of those ways, there's only one character that is actually like bad. Okay, there's only one of these nobles that expresses disdain toward the lower class. Okay, um, and look, maybe you can fact check me on that. But when again reading it through twice, this is something I noticed both times. Most of, if not almost all, except this one character, and you know who she is because she's a pain in the butt. Okay, she's the one. You know who I'm talking about. All right, Kathleen. So she's the only one that actually shows any classism. Everyone else is very, very kind to poor people or to Lux or to they are much more forgiving in a way that I think it takes away from this divide that you're trying to have solved, right? It's hard to say that there is a class divide and that all the rich people, dislike the poor. And it's more complicated than that, right? It's more complicated than just we don't like poor people. Okay, there's a lot to it. And again, that is something that I feel like could be really explored in this story, right? When you have something like classism involved, like as a feature of the narrative, you really want to see what effects it has on the society. And how does that affect our main character, whose one goal is to be pure and innocent, even in a world that is absolutely not pure and innocent, right? And so that is something I would really like to see. Again, most of the people who are rich and prominent are forgiving. They are kind. They hold no ill will towards lower class people. And look, when you're rich, you can be nice. All right, like we know this. Okay, this is something that happens in the real world. But in terms of the story, I think in terms of what you were trying to put across there, having this as a big feature of the narrative, I feel like something that was a bit of a drawback to me, and I would like to see more of that. Again, like I said, when you have an audience that simply wants more, I don't always think that's a bad thing. I think that's a really good thing that they just want more of your story, more of your writing, more of this world that you have crafted. So I think that's a really good part. One thing that I also did have a critique upon is the romance. I love a good romance as much as the next guy. I especially love a good romance when it has that fantasy backdrop. And I think that you have all of the makings of what could be a really, really great romance here. The only problem is Silas. Okay, the only problem is your angsty vampire boy. Okay, if I could burn him with fire, I would. Okay, so Silas is a really great character. He fits kind of the mold that he is meant to be. He's kind of emo. He's got dark hair and fangs. All right. Nobody can love him. I mean, he's everything that you want in an angsty vampire boy. Which again is not really my type of character. But I see exactly the type of character that he is supposed to be, and so I think that he does fit the mold. Now, one of the things that I look for in a good romance is kind of these moments where the two characters kind of get to know each other, and how they learn about each other, and they I see that Lux and I see Silas kind of banter back and forth a little bit, and they have these moments, but I feel like most of their interactions, like 90% of their interactions, is Luxalia, kind of trying to get close to him, and he is running away from his feelings, right? And look, there's a narrative there, there's a story there. Again, I think you've got all the tools that you need. But when you look at every other character in the book, okay, um, they're just better characters. They like Eldrick, for example. He's the older brother of the Passor family. He's there for Lux as an older brother in every possible way. When she's upset, he's there. Okay, when she cares about people, he's there. Okay, and I think Silas's biggest issue with Lux is that she's just so self-giving, right? And he himself does not seem to be a selfish character, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why he would be, like, I get that he's trying to protect her while not really doing a very good job of trying to protect her. Okay, he just the whole of their romance is, hey, Silas, angsty vampire boy, I'm trying to get close to you, and Silas is like, no, I can't, and he runs away, and that's pretty much it. I think even for a good portion of the story itself, like he's gone to the guild, he's gone to the watch, and then he shows up, and she's like, hey, I kind of like you, and he's like, no, you can't like me, don't ever say that. And that is the gist of their romance. Like, that's the beginning and end of it, until he's finally able to say, hey, I like you, right? That's pretty much the romance. And so again, I would just like to see more. One question, Kathleen, that I have. Look, I know you're from Alabama. Okay, I'm from Alabama too. Look, I get it. I get it. But there, but Silas has a sister. Okay, the sister was an Asterblood. Okay, and he meets this new Asterblood. Okay, and he says, "Hey, you kind of have like a lot of the same vibes as my sister. Why don't we name you after my sister?" Okay, like, not like my sister's name is Jasper, let's call you Onyx, because you remind me of a rock just like my sister, something like that. Like, it's like, hey, my sister's name was Lux. Why don't we name you Lux? Because you like have the same vibes. And also, I want to become romantically entangled with you. All right. Do you see where I'm going at there? Again, like I said, I know you're from Alabama. I get it. It's all good. But look, I just has some questions. Okay. So that was a funny thing. I don't know if that was intentional. Look, if you're like subverting my expectations like crazy, fully intending for that to be in there, props to you. But if that was not intentional, I think that's kind of amusing. That's kind of funny. But yeah, that is my genuinely honest review of Arborea Lux. There's a lot of things that I like about it, and there's a lot of things that I want to see more of. Right? Again, that's not a bad thing. That is 100% a good thing in my book. Right? When people want to see more, I guess you just have to write a whole new trilogy called the Seraphim Trilogy, beginning with Seraphim Awakening, which you have announced and are coming out with pretty soon. So I look, if you're okay with it, I'll totally read and review that book as well. I'm just really excited that we have people in the world who are writing their stories, getting it out there, adding books to the Magic Library. And I like your YouTube channel. It's going great. I watch every video that comes out. And I read your books, and then I trash on your books because I'm the writer here. Okay, I'm the writer. You don't get to write books and get away with it, Kathleen. No, 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 no. So if you do like vampires, if you like mystery, if you like romance, if you like fancy trees on the cover of books, I highly recommend Arboriah Lux. And if you want to just support a small, creator, somebody who's beginning their journey, Kathleen would be a great person because it's not about what you begin with; it's about kind of like who you become. And so if you take nothing away from this, look, just I am excited for what you're going to continue working on in the future. And because of that, I now have to write better and do more and publish more books because I have to win. Okay. Now, Hunter, what battle are you fighting? What war are you waging? It doesn't matter. I just have to win. Okay. If Kathleen comes out with a book, I have to write 5 more books. Okay. If she thinks her book is good, well, my book has to be amazing. Okay. I'm a competitive person like that. So I have read Arboriah Lux twice. And I'll probably read it a third time and just be angry that somebody else is writing books in this world. Okay. Look, this has inspired me in a lot of ways to keep working on my own books and to work hard at that. And look, I've even got my red light because I'm trying to channel some villain energy here. You got to start the YouTube beef, all right? You've got to start it because you've got to get views. Look, if you despise people that write books, like this video, comment, despise, no, I'm just having a lot of fun. I'm trying to play a villain here. But seriously, go check out Kathleen's YouTube channel. She both does, book videos as well as anime videos on a second channel called the Otaku Section. Her book Arboriah Lux is out and available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all of the other places that you buy books. Again, links will be down in the description. So highly recommend that you do that. Kathleen, keep writing books. Think you're doing good, but not as good as me. Okay, we're gonna duke this out. We're gonna see who comes out on top at the end of things. Okay. So you keep writing and I'll keep writing and we'll see how that goes. So see you guys later. Check out the books. Check out more of my channel. I've got my own books that are out. You'll see that in the description as well. So peace. I'm out, guys. Thank you.